Hi everyone, it's Ren here, and I'm actually a bit inspired this weekend, so I decided to make another video before the end of the weekend, before I have to go back to the business of working life. Um, Not the most fun part of life, in my opinion. I was inspired to make this second video because in the comments to my most recent video, which I uploaded yesterday, on the rarity of INFJs and of other types, a person by the username of Kino asked me whether I could make a video on the topic of INFJs and dating. And from what I understand, that person meant dating in terms of going on dates and potentially also relationships, because in French there is, which is my native tongue, there is no real distinction between, well, I mean, sorry, like when we say dating, like when we hear the word dating, for linguistic reasons, which I will not go into, there tends to be an uncertainty whether dating means going on dates or actual relationships. Obviously, the two are connected, and maybe I can tackle both topics here if I realize that the first topic, let's say the topic of going on dates, has already taken too much time. Maybe I'll make a video on INFJs and relationships specifically in the future, because it's something that I had not necessarily planned to do for this particular channel. Some people know I make, like, my sort of label, I want it to be, my brand, I want to be about INFJness and philosophy, and it tends to suggest a more TI approach to INFJness, but I think I can probably say some things about dating. So, INFJs and dating. It's a thing that I think, we are human beings, so we care about dating. And INFJs, as Kino was saying in their message, they mentioned the paradox of FETI. So interesting to think about it in terms of a paradox and what man is expecting to behave as in today's society, and how INFJs navigate that, given that they are presumably FE users, and as such they're not going to be for men, let's say, the ones most likely to come across as manly. I suppose that was the implication. And so how can we talk about that? Well, I have had, some experience. I'm 31 years old, so I have a bit of experience, and I'm in a relationship now, and I can even say that I'm in a relationship with a beautiful INFJ. So that's said. But of course, throughout my 20s, I went on dates, and I definitely could observe certain patterns. So I guess what people would be interested in would be, how can we sort of try to optimize our chances for dates to go well, given our function stack again. Well, I suppose, this whole idea that men should look a certain way, men should be a certain way. There is certainly that kind of pressure that you observe in society. Men are expected to be manly, or they feel like they're expected to be manly, and that manliness is more successful. And manliness, really, and that's perhaps the most fundamental point, is that manliness is defined in terms of being tough. And toughness is itself understood or defined tacitly as not expressing emotion too much. And that is obviously comes in contrast with the INFJ typical style. Well, I think what's interesting to point out here first is really that manliness does not have to be about this withholding of emotion. It could really be taken to mean many other things. And my experience, and this is the truth, by the way, like I'm not trying to paint like a rosy portrait of my experience. My experience is that for women, let's say, that's my experience, that's the only experience I can talk about. You know, a man who used to, you know, go on dates with women, they are looking for manliness a lot of the time. And I think that's normal. In a certain sense, it's natural. But where the mistake lies is in imagining that manliness for women today is necessarily amounting to toughness, withholding emotion, just appearing somewhat impervious to vulnerability. I wish I could tell you that that was my experience, if that's what you want to hear, but it's not been my experience. And so it's interesting to try and look into why it's not been my experience, knowing that it's only my life and experience. Well, in general, what I've been getting from dates and stuff is that women are attracted to people who have confidence, people who are, and I think men are attracted to women who have confidence. So confidence, responsibility are the two main aspects, I think. Taking responsibility for what you do and what you say, and having confidence, you know, standing for what you're saying, not being ashamed of your own position on things, not being afraid of expressing it. And if you think about it, that does not really include toughness and withholding emotion in the equation. In fact, women who tend to be interested in men who, among many other things, are confident and take responsibility. I feel like I'm talking like Jordan Peterson here, but in that respect, I think he's right. Will also greatly appreciates a man who is these things, but also expresses vulnerability, not toughness, toughness in some cases, of course, but like vulnerability, emotion, and other things. It's not true, I don't think it's true, and I have not experienced that, that women devalue these things. I'm busy for now. 10 minutes. Yeah, sorry, it's my mom. Well, talk about being manly. My mommy is is telling me to go for lunch. So yeah, like women are not necessarily looking for toughness, but they're looking for a man who takes responsibility, and that's completely understandable, and it's not antithetical to the INFJ approach. So perhaps a trick for an INFJ man, let's say, is not to think that a date, you know, is going to judge them for expressing feeling and emotion, because if they sort of put that idea in their mind, then they will be self-conscious by trying not to look like themselves in a sense, being their real self, which is the self that expresses emotion. And most people, and including most women, will notice that, and they will notice it sometimes in imperceptible ways. They will sometimes not make it out, they will not say it, sometimes they will not even think it consciously, but it will make you less attractive, because the date will notice that you're trying to be what you're not. In a sense, you're not taking responsibility and you're not showing self-confidence. Whereas if you just embrace this feeling part of you, and I think knowing that your type is INFJ can help you accept yourself, because that's just who you are, really. That you have to sort of negotiate that, like that's who you are, and you have a lot of other qualities that are very sought after and that other people don't have. You're creative, you're intuitive, you are perceptive. Like these are immensely attractive qualities to have, you know, and they will be valued. So I think that what can play against, say, an INFJ man is that is not that they are sensitive, is that they're going to try to hide that they're sensitive. And that attempt at hiding that they are is going to be noticed, and is going to be seen as a lack of authenticity and a lack of manliness in a way, because they're not owning up to what they really are, who they really are. Whereas if they own up to that, then they will appear more confident, and then they will appear more attractive, not only to other people, but to themselves too. And, you know, my experience, again, has been that whenever I've tried to appear tough, it's never worked. It maybe worked in the very short term, you know, because if during a date, a woman likes your and believes your pretense at being, you know, tough and stuff, and decides to meet you again and again, like you're going to be constantly like under pressure to continue appearing like what you're not, and sooner or later the person is going to notice, and then they'll think, well, the person that I went on dates with, they're not going to think, oh, actually that person is weak. No, they're going to think that person is immature in a way, you know. Maybe the real opposite of manliness is not you know, being effeminate or whatever, you know. Maybe it's simply immaturity. And, you know, that's really been my perspective. Whenever I have been embracing my supposedly effeminate side, because, you know, I'm not like the embodiment of the manly man, and I'm very emotional, very sensitive, and I'm perceptive, and I talk about these things, and I can cry easily. If you say to a woman, I cry easily, but you say it in a way that's confident and that just represents like this complete acceptance of who you are, that's not going to be unmanly. That's the fundamental insight. Society expects men to be men and puts in us this idea that we need to be like, I don't know, tough, muscular, all these things. But a man who is these things, tough, muscular, and you know, who forces himself to be tough, who builds up his body mass, but who's insecure because he's trying to be someone he's not, he's not going to be appealing to women in the long term, because he is not being himself. He's not accepting himself for who he is. That's my perspective, and I'm not going to go into the detail of my dating life, but and I have met someone fantastic who completely accepts me for who I am, but it's always been like that. And this ties in with something else, and maybe I'll conclude my video with that. Sometimes you will get the impression that the people really are looking for these qualities of being tough and not showing emotion, and that it's not just about you being confident about who you really are. Well, in that case, the rejection that you may experience should not be cause for you questioning this approach you've taken to owning up to who you are. That's something that for your own well-being and your own psychological balance, you should always embrace, and it's the way to go. No, I would say that just reveals that the person that you're on a date with, regardless of their type, because I personally don't believe that there is any ideal type. In my experience, I've had slightly more issues with FI user women. I think that because I'm someone who tends to enjoy getting affection outwardly, I resonate with FE users. My girlfriend is an FE user, an amazing one, and that suits me great. But I don't think there's a law. I don't think there's a rule. You know, she used to think that an INFJ match would not be possible or good, and that's been proven wrong. So there's no rule. What the rule is, I think, if someone makes you feel uncomfortable for who you are when you're trying to be who you are, the fault does not lie with you, it lies with them. Or, you know, it doesn't even lie with them. What it means is that person's not for you, and it's okay for a person not to be for you. You know, there's great empowerment that can come with the idea that if a person doesn't accept who you are, you move on and you don't regret it. It's their loss, not yours. And that might sound like it's a platitude that I'm saying, but it's been my systematic experience. You know, own up to who you are and be proud of it. And that's the best way to appeal to the people who are worth appealing to. All right, see you guys.